3 years, $81 million, $60 million guaranteed, highest paid interior offensive lineman in NFL history.
And obviously centers are kind of a position right now in a state of flux, and we're trying to figure that out. We weren't able to address that in the draft. We don't play games until September. There will be some opportunities for us between now and then to address the center position, whether that's free agency, the draft, other things, a trade, whatever that might be. There'll be different things that we can do.
Likely has reached a 3-year deal with the New York Football Giants. Wow. Harbaugh says, yep, I love them.
I've always wanted to retire as a Raven, be there for my whole career just because of how much it means to me. But, that just didn't happen, and, I'm okay with it.
We won't be using, as you alluded to, a fullback. We've got 4 tight ends on the roster. The idea would be really to, create sort of a surprise element to the offense where defenses really don't get a sense for what we're trying to do in any given play.
When you think of the Ravens offseason, your mind probably goes to the new coaching staff, the additions of Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Hawkins, Calais Campbell, the strong draft class. But every offseason has another side to it, and it's the players that you lose. And the Ravens lost 13 players and are clearly making some bets here that they are able to replace those players with some of those additions or guys that are already on the roster. So we're going to dissect these losses and discuss whether the Ravens made the right decision letting them walk. The biggest loss of the Ravens offseason has to be Tyler Linderbaum, and it's still one of the most unanswered questions of this roster. The Ravens do not have a clear starting center. There's a competition between free agent additions, Danny Pinter, Jovan Gwynn, Corey Bullock, who's been here, and then also undrafted free agent rookie Nick Dawkins from Penn State. I would say right now the leaders are definitely Danny Pinter and Jovan Gwynn, but there's a high chance that the Ravens starting center is still not on this roster.
We don't play games until September. There will be some opportunities for us between now and then to address the center position, whether that's free agency, the draft, other things, a trade, whatever that might be. There'll be different things that we can do.
Tyler Linderbaum's not easy to replace, and I don't think that the Ravens are betting that they will upgrade the center position. I don't think that that's what this is. I do think that the Ravens believe that their offensive line overall is stronger. The tackles are the same, and Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, Roger Rosengarten at right tackle. The Ravens upgraded the guards, or at least did on paper. They go out and sign John Simpson to replace Voorhees. Voorhees is still there as depth now. We also have Emory Jones Jr. as depth because the right guard is going to be Vanga Ioane that the Ravens drafted at 14. So I believe, as well as the Ravens probably believe, that they have upgraded the guard position and the entire O-line collectively, not to mention adding Dwayne Ledford, one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. You had Declan Doyle as up-and-coming, innovative offensive coordinator. The scheme and coaching should also lift this offensive line, but also adding talent to the guard spots has really lifted this offensive line. But we have downgraded at center, and no one knows who the starting center is set to be. So I think this Tyler Linderbaum loss is truly a bet. The Ravens obviously didn't want to pay $27 million a year. I get it. He completely reset the center market with the Raiders. But also, we have to replace Tyler Linderbaum in some way, and I think we have to find a serviceable center. It doesn't have to be an upgrade at center particularly, but you need to make sure that the totality of the offensive line play is upgraded from recent years, and that's the bet that the Ravens are taking here. They know that they are not going to get a Tyler Linderbaum immediately plugged into center. I don't think that that's really possible. He's one of the better centers in the entire NFL. So you have to find someone that knows what they're doing, understands the protections, can communicate to the O-line, may lose sometimes, but hopefully they lose slow. Hopefully they can move. We need a guy that can move. We're going to be running a lot more outside zone this year, and I think our linemen are going to have to get up and go, and you don't want a slow, sluggish lineman. So I do think that those are some criteria of what this center needs to fit and meet expectations of, but I don't expect this to be a Pro Bowl center that the Ravens are plugging in. The bet is that they can find a serviceable center that isn't going to be messing up a lot and knows how to communicate to the rest of the O-line. And then the bigger bet is that they've upgraded everything else around the center position on the offensive line to make sure that we are just getting more consistent offensive line play this season, which I do think that the Ravens offensive line play will be better than recent years, but this is the biggest gamble the Ravens are taking this year in not directly replacing Tyler Linderbaum, not getting a guy in the draft, and then not signing a bigger free agent. Not that there were a ton of options, but they really didn't sign any of the top free agent center options, and they went with Danny Pinter and Jovan Gwynn. So we'll see if one of those guys wins the job or if the center's yet to be on the Ravens roster. The next bet that the Ravens are taking is letting Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar walk. Isaiah Likely signed with the Giants, Charlie Kolar signed with the LA Chargers, and the Ravens are clearly all in on Mark Andrews as tight end one. I don't think that there's much debate that Mark Andrews is going to be tight end one this year. I do expect his production to jump from recent years. I don't think it'll go to prime Mark Andrews production, but I do think that from recent years when his production has been declining, I do see a resurgence in that. I do think that Zay Flowers is obviously going to lead the targets. I don't think Mark Andrews is going to be the number one targeted option in the passing game by any means, but I do think he'll be the number one tight end in the passing game. And Mark Andrews, they decided to re-sign him in the middle of last season. Isaiah Likely wanted to seek more opportunity, and the Ravens, when they re-signed Mark Andrews, kind of said, hey, like, if we even re-sign Likely, you're still not going to be the guy here right now. And the Ravens made that decision for better or worse. We're about to find out. But it is a big gamble letting the talent of Isaiah Likely go, letting Charlie Kolar go, and not really replacing them with, proven options. We got Durham Smythe in free agency, who is very familiar with Declan Doyle's system and was coached by Declan Doyle last year in Chicago. He's a versatile tight end. I think that he is going to help fill that Charlie Kolar role, and we may have directly replaced that type of role with him. And also the rookie tight ends in Matt Hibner and Josh Cuevas. Josh Cuevas does a lot more of that as well. Matt Hibner is an athletic receiving tight end that is set to try and replace Isaiah Likely's production. I don't know if he is going to get as much opportunity, though, as Isaiah Likely. So I do think that the Ravens lose a receiving weapon in Isaiah Likely. And is it worth the gamble? Is it going to work out that they are betting on two rookie tight ends and Durham Smythe? And obviously, like I said in the past segment, Declan Doyle is a big factor in all of this because we have a completely new offensive system, play caller, that all matters, So I do think that is probably going to make it easier for some guys to get the ball. But I do think it's safe to say that the Ravens downgraded the depth of their tight end room. They had one of the strongest tight end rooms in the league with Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar. And now you got Mark Andrews, two rookies in Matt Hibner and Josh Cuevas, which there's just a lot of unproven there. It doesn't mean that Matt Hibner can't come in and shock the world and have a lot of Isaiah Likely type moments. I think he's athletic. I think he's got a lot of ability, but he's a rookie. It's a gamble. Josh Cuevas is a versatile tight end that I think can come in and, play a variety of spots on this offense, but it's a gamble. There's an unknown there. And then Durham Smythe, I don't know how involved he's going to be in the passing game, but I do think he's going to be out there, getting some shorter passes and then just blocking, playing a tight end / fullback role. We're not going to have a traditional fullback, but we're going to use the tight end still. And I do think that we may run a little bit more 11 personnel this year and only have Mark Andrews out there and have more wide receivers out there on the field and just be more multiple than we have in past years. And that does help absolve some of the Isaiah Likely loss blow. But I do think that it's no doubt a loss, and the Ravens are going to have to replace this production somewhere. I'm not sure if it directly comes from the tight end room. The next bet that the Ravens are making is that they don't need a fullback. And I don't think that this is a huge gamble because most of the league doesn't use a traditional fullback like the Ravens have been using, but they did let Pat Ricard walk, and he ended up following John Harbaugh to the New York Giants. And the Ravens Eric DeCosta has said himself, they are not planning to use a fullback anymore. They still are going to be a tight end driven offense. I think Durham Smythe, like we mentioned in the last segment, may play some fullback. It's not that we won't have a tight end in the fullback slot in certain formations, but we're not going to have Pat Ricard blocking in front of Derrick Henry. And, Pat Ricard has had almost a decade run here in Baltimore, and it's been beautiful, man. He's been a huge unlock to the running game and has helped a ton, has been an extra offensive lineman out there. But the Ravens are betting that they can still have a successful offense without a fullback and without Pat Ricard specifically. And I think they can, because I really think, like I said, this is a philosophy switch, and a lot of the league does not use a fullback and still has a lot of offensive success. The Ravens are going to be more multiple. I think they're going to be more explosive than they have been in recent years, and I just trust Declan Doyle and this new offense to be able to scheme guys open and get points on the board and move the ball down the field without a fullback. You can still have a successful run game. You could put Lamar under center more, use more play action. You're still going to lean on the run with Derrick Henry. I think outside zone is going to be a lot bigger of a factor than it has been in recent years. Derrick Henry excels at that. I think our offensive line is set up to excel at that. Lamar under center. Lamar and Derrick Henry running opposite ways. It's still going to be very tough to defend. Lamar's obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the league, despite the NFL top 100 having him come in at 69th this year, which is absolute disrespect. I can't wait for this revenge tour, because Lamar Jackson is one of the best players on planet Earth. And I completely trust, with or without a fullback, that our offense is going to have a ton of success and that he's going to be lethal through the air, on the ground, whatever it takes, man. So I am 100% behind moving on from a fullback. I love Pat Ricard, but I don't think this is as big of a gamble as some people may think, losing a fullback or losing Pat Ricard. I think we'll be able to make it up by being a different type of offense, honestly, and not having a traditional fullback. The next bet that the Ravens are making is that their defense is younger and better. And I say better by roster personnel and also coaching with Jesse Minter. But the Ravens did lose some guys on defense that were playing some roles. They lost Ardarius Washington to the Giants. They lost Chandler Martin to the Eagles. They lost Alohi Gilman, who they traded for last year, to the Chiefs. Jake Hummel went to the Texans. Draymond Jones, who they also traded for last year, went to the Patriots. And David Ojabo went to the Dolphins. The Ravens ended up offsetting some of these losses by bringing in Trey Hendrickson, by bringing in safety Jalen Hawkins from the Patriots, by re-signing Calais Campbell, who was here before. The Ravens did make some moves to offset some of these defensive losses, and I don't know if they were staple defensive losses. I mean, I love Ardarius Washington, but I think bringing in Jalen Hawkins, also signing Kayvon Wallace, also drafting Chandler Rivers, who I know isn't a safety but can play a versatile role as a defensive back. I think that the Ravens have offset the Ardarius Washington loss. And then by losing Draymond Jones, who came here and was very productive in his short time in Baltimore last year after the trade, they definitely offset that by signing Trey Hendrickson, which I think is an upgrade. You add more D-line depth by bringing back Calais Campbell. Alohi Gilman was another safety that we brought in last year that I think Jalen Hawkins directly offsets and potentially is an upgrade. And even though the Ravens had an offensive-heavy draft, they also got Zion Young in the second round, who was going to be a contributor immediately for the Ravens. So I do think the Ravens have done a good job offsetting these defensive losses. I don't think that they were huge losses by any means. Some of those guys were just the trades that we made last year that ended up just signing elsewhere. So obviously those moves didn't really work out for the Ravens from a long-term standpoint, but I think they've done a good job retooling and upgrading the defense. So it is a bet to replace all of those defensive losses with some new guys and also bring in Jesse Minter, who's going to have a completely different scheme and be the play caller just like Declan Doyle is on offense. So I think that we upgraded at defensive coordinator essentially, and head coach, and then we upgraded at the roster personnel as well. So this is a gamble the Ravens are taking by letting a lot of defensive guys go, but I think this is a smart gamble. And the last bet the Ravens are making is that the special teams won't miss a beat. They lost Jordan Stout to the Giants, and he ended up becoming the highest paid punter in the NFL. The Ravens drafted him in the 4th round. He didn't have his best years until this recent contract year where he was one of the better punters in the NFL and then got paid like it, and the Ravens were just not willing to match that. that. But therefore, they had to go out and get another punter, and they drafted one this year in the draft in the 6th round, Ryan Eckley from Michigan State. He was one of the country's top specialists. He earned Big Ten Punter of the Year last year in 2025, and the Ravens are betting that he is going to directly replace Jordan Stout's production, or at least most of it. You know, you don't want to downgrade drastically. I know punter's not the most important position in football, but it does matter, and I think if you have a weapon at punter, you know, you can really flip the field. And from early signs, it seems like Ryan Eckley's got all the confidence in the world, and he's got a variety of punt styles, and I think that he'll be able to replace what Jordan Stout brought here. But the Ravens are taking a gamble here by letting, you know, a proven punter walk out the door, going back to the draft, drafting another rookie punter. The Ravens are taking a gamble by going with this young special teams core. You know, you have a rookie punter, you have a second-year kicker, and also that rookie punter is going to be the holder for Tyler Loop, so you got to work on that chemistry as well. Jordan Stout was previously doing that, so I think this isn't a huge gamble by the Ravens, but it is a gamble that the Ravens are taking, and they are betting on this new young special teams core that they are going to be able to execute and do their job throughout the season, even in clutch moments. And whether the Ravens are right or not will not be decided in July. This is going to be decided in January at the end of this season. But I wanted to recap these losses because it feels like it's been a while since free agency, and also just talk about the replacements of these losses and how the Ravens are taking bets and gambles in certain areas to improve their team. But let me know what you guys are thinking about who we lost and what kind of impact that's going to have, or do you feel comfortable in the Ravens' plan to replace a lot of these guys? Let me know what you're thinking. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the 2nd episode of Sleeper Ravens. If you don't know who I am Ryan. I run a channel called The Flock Rundown for the last 3 seasons. This will be the 4th season that I've been running that, and am now partnering with Sleeper to run Sleeper Ravens as well. This is the 2nd episode. If you haven't checked out the 1st episode, there's a full offseason recap, and we dive into a lot of the things that happened throughout this offseason, and then following it up with episode 2 here. So appreciate you guys so much for tuning in to Sleeper Ravens, for all the support that you guys have been showing. I can't wait for this season. I can't wait for training camp right around the corner on July 29th. But I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much again for all the love, and I will see you guys for episode 3.